Greetings, YouTubians, and welcome to Battle of the Bruisers, brought to you by DLT Trading. Look them up for all of your knives and EDC needs. And in today's matchup, we have Bruisers in their own right. Both Bruisers, both different. This here is the Medford Slim Midi Marauder, and here we have the Strider .75 AR. Now, this is how it's going to go. We have six categories, excuse me. We have blade, handle and ergos, carry, value, action, and aesthetics. Now, with 6 categories, of course, there is a possibility for a tie. If there is, we will handle that when we get to it. We don't have a tie for this one, so we're not going to worry about that. But it is very, very close, extremely close, closer than I thought it'd be. But here we go. Let's get right into it with the blade. Now, both of these have very respectable edges. The edge on this Medford here is coming in at 20 thousandths, and it slices pretty well, and it should. It's a thinner blade. With a hollow grind, you're going to get good results, good performance out of it, and S35 VN steel, of course. You can't leave that out. Excellent steel, one of my all-time favorite steels. Very, very good, very comparable. Really no complaints whatsoever except for one, and that is the factory edge on this guy. Now, the factory edge is good, don't get me wrong. Medford edges, from what I've heard, are always pretty razor sharp. This one was sharp, but the Strider, very surprisingly, with such a thick stock, this Strider coming in at 23 thousandths behind the edge and the hollow grind, it just sliced a little better from my experience. And again, I'm just using paper. These aren't my knives. They're from a very generous viewer. But again, I kept it to paper because I think that's more of everyone's typical EDC use with letters. Cardboard would be the next one up. And, you know, I kept it to paper. But all in all, this did feel like it sliced slightly better than the Medford Marauder, which is very surprising to me. But nonetheless, you know, S90V steel could have a lot to do with it. But the factory edge on this, I think, just edged it out a little. And it just kind of is what it is. I was surprised about this. I thought for sure this was going to go to the Medford, but it didn't. So in the first category, we do have an upset. The best blade goes to the Strider .75 AR. Now, handle and ergos, and we're going to keep this guy in hand right here because this does go to the Strider. In all honesty, in this category, it's not very close. This feels absolutely fantastic in my hand. It has a good thickness that I really appreciate. It has that forward choil and a lot of curves and room down here that my hand just wraps around really well. This little area back here, it's not a hot spot whatsoever. It's rounded plenty good enough. It sits in your palm very well, and you have one of the most solid grips on a knife you could possibly get, especially with that jimping up there. Which, like I said in the review, the jimping does not tear up your thumb, but boy, does it grab it. It grabs it really well. Not the most, not the type of jimping you see on every knife, but hey, you know what? It works, and I'm not complaining at all. So, does go to the Strider, but I do want to talk about the Slim Midi because it does still feel pretty darn good in hand, especially with this choil here. The choil is really good. I actually kind of like this choil a little more than this. They're so different and also somewhat similar at the same time when it comes to ergos. But for me, what really takes the cake is the thickness on this guy right here. For me, this is not too thick of a knife. For some people, it would be. For me, this is slightly too thin. And I don't know. It just is. It just is. I still really like the ergos on this knife, but I like that Strider a little more. So Strider takes that one as well. Now, carry. Carry was a little closer than you'd think because obviously this guy's coming in at like 7 ounces, so it's pretty heavy. You do feel it in the pocket. This one right here is, I think, 4.3, 4.2 ounces. Considerably lighter, thinner, and you know, it's going to the Medford. The Medford does carry a little better, but I'm telling you, what made this so close was the pocket clip conundrum between these two. Neither one of them are perfect pocket clips. For me, this one, there's a lot of the knife sitting up. It's wide. It's kind of shimmery. It's not my favorite pocket clip, but you do have really good retention. It's going to hold in your pocket. It's not going to go anywhere. Now, the Slim Midi has it feels like it carries a little deeper. It does carry a little deeper. There's a little less of the knife showing, but then you have this little gap right here with the contact point of the pocket clip. And I'm not a fan of it, but regardless, it does still hold in the pocket. And because of the thinness and everything else that factors into a carry, how it feels in the pocket, the ease of getting in and out of your pocket, I'm going to narrowly give this one to the Medford. If this pocket clip was going all the way down and actually touching it, giving it a little more secure grip, or secure grab in your pocket, it would be Medford very, very easily in this one. But because of that, it's very close. But nonetheless, it does go to the Medford. Now, value. This one's tough because this one's a tie, and this is why. You have $595, you have $545. Titanium, S35, S90. You have, and this is just a bigger knife in general. It's not, the cost in making a bigger knife isn't as crazy as some people think in comparison to making a smaller knife or a thinner knife, but there are more materials being used. And at the same time, I'm sure Medford and Strider don't use the exact same labor rates. I'm sure they have other things that factor in differently, from overhead to all other sorts of things. But when you're talking in the $500 range, we're talking $595, $545. When you get that high in price, that's not the same as comparing $150 to $100. And at the same time, too, you're also talking heavy, extreme enthusiast or collector versus someone who just wants to carry a knife all day. Nothing wrong with anyone's choices. I'm not trying to belittle anyone by any stretch of the imagination or anything like that. But when you get to this price tag, $50 doesn't exactly make or break the decision. And because of that, I think they're both fantastic values, or they're both decent values for the price range and the market they're in. You're comparing these guys not with Civivis and not even Benchmades. You're comparing these with Chris Reeve. You're comparing them with Koenig. You're comparing them with Hinder and even some of the Demco knives. You're not comparing them to lesser than that. So with that being said, I do think they're both decent values, and it's just a tie because there's nothing that really sets one apart from the other. So with that being said, when it comes to value, you really can't go wrong with either one. Now, when it comes to action, there is a winner. There is absolutely a winner in this category. The Strider is more of it's kind of like that, I don't know, it's just much. Now, you can, if you really want, you can flick it out. You need more wrist. It's hard to do it under a camera, but most people are just going to roll it out like this right here, and that works fine. Like I said, this is a very smooth knife on the rollout. The placement of this thumb hole works very well. You do have to be mindful of the lock bar because it's kind of big. You don't want to press on that too much because that can give you some issues, but once you get used to it, it's not too bad at all. And again, this is not a fidgety knife. This knife is made to work and last forever, which this one is too, but the Medford does have a better action, in my opinion, because I like Spidey flicking, and of course, and because you can Spidey flick this knife, because it's on bearings, because you can also slow roll it out just as easy, well, just about as easy. I will say sometimes it can be a little more difficult to slow roll this out, but again, I'm not going to be slow rolling this knife. I'm going to be Spidey flicking it all day, not when I'm under the camera, and everyone is going to be really good like that. But yes, I do give the action to the Medford in this category, and it was kind of close. I did think about it a little more than I thought I would, because again, when you're not under a camera, slow rolling either one of these that one's very easy. This one is pretty easy when you're not when you don't have hundreds or thousands of people watching you, because you just know something's gonna go wrong. But regardless, no, the Spidey flicking and the Fuller on this absolutely takes the cake. Definitely like the action on this Medford over the Strider. Now, aesthetics. And this one was so tough. It really was, because I think they both look pretty darn great in their own right. The Strider is made to just look like a Boss, a Bruiser. It's the thickness difference between these two is just stupid. I mean, absolutely stupid. But again, when you're looking at the overall lines and aesthetics, they both have some very strong points. The Strider has some, commanding points, a very dominating looking blade with a wicked grind and a really cool swedge up there. I also really like the Strider logo. I do like that more than the Medford logo. That doesn't really mean much of anything. And again, aesthetics are all complete personal opinion. This is just my personal opinion on it. I also like the lock side of this a lot more than the lock side of the Medford, just because it just looks super tactical to me. It looks super tactical and just badass. But then I also like the very flowing lines on the Medford. I like the way the fuller matches up and just follows the contour of everything. I like the milled out areas down here, and I like how the clip is nice and thin. It kind of rides along the lock bar line. All pretty cool. The only part of the aesthetics that I don't really like on this is that, like I point out in the video, the detent ball track. But again, if I bought this, it would definitely be in a Stonewash or satin blade. But again, I'm not going to hold that against it because that's just nature of the beast. Not going to hold it against it whatsoever. I really want to go with the Medford, but I can't get over the look of the Strider, and I think it's because it's very unique. When I'm holding this Medford in hand, I see other blades that I can kind of, I'll pull a couple out right here that I had in size comparisons. The ProTech and the TRM. I think both of them, I mean, if you look at blades, they're all beautiful drop points, but they're not, to me, I kind of think of all these as somewhat similar blades minus that fuller. If you had the fuller out, then, obviously the fuller adds a little bit of pop to it. But for me, when it comes to looks, I do have to give it to the Strider because it's a very dominating look, a very unique look, and I just think the aesthetics are pretty awesome, especially that swedge up here. It's so sweet the way that swedge kind of curves down a little, comes down with a nice drop point, and it just takes it for me. I've never said how much I like the lock side of a knife either than this Strider right here. So in a score of 3-2 to 1, we have the winner being the Strider .75 AR. Now, this was close. When I started making these notes, in my mind, I was kind of thinking it was going to be the Medford, but the Medford has been outdueled in this one. It has been. Now, not to take anything away from this Medford, it is still a fantastic knife. Very, very good. And probably as far as when it comes to being pocket friendly for most people, I think they probably would prefer the thin, lighter Medford. But in this battle right here, the winner is the Strider .75 AR. Very, very happy with that decision. I really love this knife. What do you guys think? What would you guys pick if you had to pick between these two knives? Factoring out the coated blade, if they were both whatever settings you wanted, if it was color and blade, whatever, if it was in the outfit you want, which knife would you go with, Strider or Medford? Let me know. I'm very interested to see these thoughts and comments here. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know if you liked it. If you do, I will have more of these coming on down the road. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and until the next one, I'm out.